Chapter 12. As ye sow. In Galatians chapter 6 verse 7 it says, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." In Matthew chapter 7 verses 1 to 2 it says, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again." In these words, Jesus and the Apostle Paul stated the law of karma, the immutable law of cause and effect that governs all human life and guides it towards its spiritual end. Together with the law of karma, there goes hand in hand the related doctrine of reincarnation, the fact that each individual soul incarnates time after time in different bodies, returning to the material world again and again to spend many lifetimes here. In the East, this is called the wheel of births and deaths. These two laws are so closely interrelated that they cannot be separated, for each one plays a part in the operation of the other. For the sake of clarity, however, they are discussed separately here. The word karma is derived from a Sanskrit root that means doing. It is the law of doing or action and the results of actions. In its operation, it requires that every doer of actions shall receive an exact, unequivocally just reward or retribution for each and every one of his thoughts and actions, whether good or bad. Good thoughts and actions means good karma, which reveals itself in the form of happiness or good fortune of various kinds, material, mental, or spiritual, in the same or in future lives. Bad thoughts and actions imply bad karma, which must be paid for by experiencing equivalent unhappiness, pain, or suffering. This is a law that nobody breaks, because nobody can break it. It is a law that is as certain in its operation as the law of gravity. Through the inexorable but meticulously just working of the karmic law, each individual reaps the results of his past deeds, whether good or bad, and harvests in the future the blessings or the disciplines produced by his present actions. The conditions of our present life, whether apparently good or bad, happy or unhappy, are the consequences of our own doings in the past. Our thoughts and desires, whether pure or impure, rule our lives and also our destinies. As we think and desire, so we are and so we become. For thoughts and desires are things, and they follow the law of nature that like produces like. Our inmost thoughts and our heart's desires are our perpetual prayers, whether for good or ill, and the law of karma sees to it that these prayers are granted. Sooner or later we all sit down to a banquet of consequences. In this connection there are given here two fundamental principles, which, according to the teachings of the Masters, explain what is basically wrong in thought or action and what is fundamentally right. The first principle is, whatever bears the quality or character of any of the 5 evil passions, lust, anger, greed, attachment and vanity, or which in any way hinders or delays the soul in its progress towards spiritual freedom, is wrong. This is a certain guide to help the disciple to discriminate among his conflicting thoughts and emotions and to pick the thoughts or actions that will create good karma. The second guiding principle is, whatever creates bad karma is wrong, and whatever creates good karma is right. In the last analysis, the law of karma is nothing more nor less than the law of cause and effect, with which everyone is familiar. Its underlying principle is the simple and logical one that every thought and act must be followed by its natural and legitimate results. The world which we do not see the invisible world of thought, is the real world of causes. The world which we see around us is the world of effects. It is as essential to control our thoughts as it is to control our actions, for the thoughts that dwell habitually in our minds and issue from us in speech and acts determine our future happiness or unhappiness and our spiritual advancement or retrogression. We should try to govern our thoughts as if the whole world were able to read them. Each day is like a furrow lying before us. Our thoughts, desires, and actions are the seeds that each minute we drop into it, even though we do not perceive what seeds we are planting. When the furrow is completed, we commence upon another, and then another, and again another. Each day presents a fresh one, and so on to the end of life, sowing, ever sowing. And all we have sown springs up, grows, and bears fruit, either in this life or a succeeding one. It may be mentioned here, however, that the law of karma holds sway only up to the region where mind and matter cease to operate. In the realms of mind and matter, karma is universal. But as has been pointed out, there is a higher universe of worlds where pure spirit reigns supreme, and there is no karma there. It is to these worlds that the Master takes his disciples. It is sometimes argued that a belief in the karmic law is fatalism, but nothing is farther from the truth. Fatalism is a lethargic condition in which people say of their misfortunes, "It is the will of God. Of ourselves we can do nothing. The deity has inflicted this adverse fate upon us." The law of karma, on the other hand, has shown us the path to freedom, el camino real. If a person has degraded himself by his bad thoughts and actions, it stands to reason that he will surely be able to lift himself up through the influence of his good thoughts and actions. If a man can bind himself to earth, he can most certainly unbind himself. The law of karma, which may also be called the law of destiny, shows, as opposed to fatalism, that a man's destiny is the result of his own karmic actions. Thus man is the fashioner of his own fate. In doing this, he works in accordance with the divine plan for his own spiritual regeneration. The law is not a blind force. It has a purpose to carry out, and that purpose is an educative and evolutionary one. We are here to learn that the purpose of human existence is spiritual progress, and the law helps us, sometimes forces us, to learn this lesson. The self-created experiences which we undergo are the lessons that will ultimately teach us. Often we learn unconsciously, without realizing at the time, what is happening to us, but nevertheless we learn. It is true that most of us seem to learn more from suffering than from pleasure. This is because we seldom learn enough from one single experience, no matter how bitter it may be. The lesson has to be repeated until it has been burnt into the heart and mind, and has been finally and irrevocably assimilated, and we have been purified by the refiner's fire. Our heartaches and struggles awaken us to truth and help us to grow. In the end, we become aware of our true selves, realize that we are spiritual children of God, and understand that God's love has been the force that has been directing and guiding us. For love is the only force that the Supreme Father ever uses in carrying out his plan of redemption. It is simply because of our ignorance of this inexorable law and our failure to find any direct reason for our sufferings with our ordinary intelligence that we sometimes tend to put all the blame on fate or on an unjust God and regard him as cruel or partial. We never for a moment reflect that we are suffering the consequences of our own past thoughts and actions. But the man of today is the product of his thoughts and actions of yesterday. The average human being tends to attribute to God the evils that man does of his own free will. But God does not really need to punish us. We are ever busy creating our own punishment. There is a divine plan at the back of all things, and it embraces each and every life. Our life is simply a spiritual education, and suffering caused by our past actions is a part of this. God has never deserted us, and whatever happens is for the ultimate spiritual evolution of the individual and of mankind. The worst experiences are sometimes means of bringing to pass unseen good, and the hardest sufferings have always a positive and constructive purpose behind them. And like everything else in the material world, suffering cannot endure permanently. Sooner or later it must come to an end, as night ends when the dawn lightens the morning sky. Within the framework of the law of karma, we can learn that everywhere there is law and order. It is strange that in this scientific age it's sometimes difficult to convince men that life is governed by law as well as matter. Many in the West are already familiar with the karmic law as a result of the widespread interest in recent years in the study of religions and philosophies of the East. It forms a part of practically all schools of Oriental thought and is accepted without question by more than half the human race. As Jesus taught the law, he explained karma in the simplest terms as receiving what one has earned or reaping what one has sown. If a farmer sows the seeds of wheat, he harvests wheat. But if he plants the seeds of thistles, he can logically and by the operation of a law of nature expect nothing other than a crop of thistles. No one would look for any other result in the field of agriculture. The law of karma operates in precisely the same way in the field of human affairs. If one plants the seeds of love, kindness, goodwill, just dealing, right conduct, and other good thoughts and actions, he will be repaid by receiving a welcome harvest of the same kind of treatment from others. But if his thoughts and deeds are those of anger, hatred, selfishness, cheating, or harming others and so on, he will become the victim of similar treatment meted out to him by karmic law through the instrumentality of others. His karmic debts must be paid, even though the theologians claim that another has paid for him. In either case, the reward or penalty may be received in the present life or in some future life. Guru Nanak says, "Our life is the farm where the seeds of karma are sown." In The Light of Asia, the story of the life and teachings of the Buddha, Sir Edwin Arnold describes the working of the karmic law with remarkable beauty, simplicity, and clarity. It will not be condemned of anyone. Who thwarts it, loses, and who serves it, gains. The hidden good it pays with peace and bliss, the hidden ill with pains. It knows not wrath or pardon, utter true it measures meet, its faultless balance weighs. Times are as naught, tomorrow it will judge, or after many days. By this the slayer's knife did stab himself. The unjust judge hath lost his own defender. The false tongue dooms its lie. The creeping thief and spoiler rob to render. Such is the law which moves to righteousness, which none at last can turn aside or stay. The heart of it is love, the end of it is peace and consummation sweet. Obey! The book says well, my brothers, each man's life the outcome of his former living is. The bygone wrongs bring forth sorrows and woes, the bygone right breeds bliss. That which ye sow ye reap. See yonder fields. The sesamum was sesamum, the corn was corn. The silence and the darkness knew, so is a man's fate born. 3 kinds of karma. There are 3 kinds of karma recognized by the masters: fate, reserve, and new. Fate karma is that which has been created by actions in one or more previous lives and must be paid off in the present life. There is no escape from it, as a rule, even if one has been initiated by a living master. Reserve karma is the accumulated karma created during many lifetimes which has not yet been worked off. Only a certain amount of karma is exhausted in each earthly existence, and this is usually not sufficient to completely pay one's karmic debts. What is not worked off is kept as reserve karma. This karma is allotted as required by the Lord of karma. An individual may, for example, work off all of the fate karma allotted for a certain life, but this will not necessarily free him from the wheel of births and deaths. The Lord of karma, who is Kal, or the negative power, will immediately burden the individual with some of his reserve karma. New karma is that which we are making now by our day-to-day thoughts and actions. We may work out all of this karma in the present life, or some of it may be added to our store of reserve karma. In the latter case, it will have to be worked off in the next life or some subsequent life. It may be noted here that when a living master initiates a disciple, he takes over from the negative power the administration of the disciple's karma. This is of incalculable benefit to the disciple, for it means that the master will arrange matters so as to free him as rapidly as possible from the immense burden of karma accumulated during all of his past lives. Our past actions cause our fate in this present life. They determine the general circumstances of our life, the nature of our family and home life, the environments into which we are born and into which we move as we grow older, and the major important events of our lives. In addition, past actions cause innate hopes and desires, which are part of our very nature. These vary in enormous degree between different people, but in each case they drive the individual, despite himself, to think thoughts, experience desires, and perform actions that will make him experience the rewards or the penalties of past deeds, good and bad. While we are thus working out the destiny which we have created for ourselves, we possess at the same time some free will, the power of choosing how we wish to think and act, and in this way shaping our future. It was our choice of what we would think in the past that created our present destiny, and so in this very life we can use our free will to shape a better future. Many have been perplexed by the much debated question: does man actually possess free will to choose, or are all his choices predetermined by his heredity and environment over which he has no control? The answer is that he does possess limited free will, and that it is one of his most precious possessions. For when rightly used, it is a major factor in his evolution towards his ultimate spiritual destiny. If man could control and direct his will, he would become the conscious creator of his future karma, and therefore, in the popular phrase, the master of his destiny. If men, on the other hand, forget their higher selves and choose to satisfy their material and animal desires, they are free to do so, but they reap what they sow. If, on the other hand, they choose to lead an upright life as best they can, and to look inward and listen to the still small voice of conscience that God has implanted in them, they will slowly but surely rise towards spirituality. The divine plan for our redemption calls for gradual but certain awakening as the result of karmic experiences and the impact of these experiences on the choices that we make regarding the conduct of our life. It operates in simple accordance with the principles that experience is the best teacher and that human experience shapes human character. When the law of karma is correctly understood, it becomes clear that each event, experience or set of circumstances caused by a past action has the purpose of enabling the individual to learn from experience, from his past mistakes. If the lesson is not learnt the first time, it is inevitably repeated. Through such lessons, the individual is powerfully helped to overcome weaknesses, faults, wrong attitudes, or materialistic ideas that are impeding his spiritual progress. Some heed the warnings quickly, others pay no regard to them. But after repeated blows of fate, which actually are the results of similar blows that we have dealt to others in times past, one begins to learn. When one finally sees clearly, beyond any possibility of doubt, that a wrong action committed today must be paid for, either in this life or a later one, it is the strongest possible deterrent to a repetition of similar deeds. Suffering brought about by karmic law is a powerful and persuasive teacher. Pain is the hard coin we are forced to pay for wisdom. It is in this way that we finally reach the state of possessing a humble and a contrite heart, and in the end we give unstinted and joyous thanks for every moment of purifying suffering through which we have passed. And it must never be forgotten that karma includes the good as well as the bad, the boon of happy days and years as well as the rigours of mental or physical sickness or pain. If one earns the good, he must and will get the good. Nothing can possibly defeat the law and prevent it from coming to him. When we realise that everything, good or bad, that comes to us has been previously earned or created by ourselves alone, we will know that we must not hold anybody else responsible for anything that we suffer. We all have a tendency to blame others for whatever in our life may go wrong. But if we are ready to assume responsibility for our own karmic debts and not accuse others, then it will be easier for us to forgive those who willingly or unwillingly hurt us or do us some harm. For we will realise that they are being used as instruments by the Lord of Karma, and that whatever they have done to us is the result of some similar past action of our own. The basic purpose of the karmic law is to goad us into making spiritual progress. He who starts today merely takes the step that others will have perforce to take tomorrow. Man is created in the image of God, and by the Creator's divine plan is relentlessly impelled towards the ultimate achievement of God-likeness. Self-improvement is what we are in the world for. It is our first and most sacred duty. The disciple soon learns what is true for him and all others, that not one effort is wasted, not one struggle fails to advance him, and that every effort to do the right thing carries him forward on the path of spiritual progress. Every spiritual desire or aspiration goes on and obeys a higher law. It is never lost. It does not matter if you do not see immediate results. They will come to you in due time as incalculable blessings. The result of every fine and noble thought has far-reaching effects, and you will know one day that the faintest longing for the higher life has helped you towards spiritual liberation. What is the ultimate purpose of the karmic law? It is to purify the individual and to bring him in the end to a living master who will free him of his karmic debts and take him back to his spiritual home. This is the greatest good fortune that can come to any man or woman, the very highest reward for acting in such a manner as to create good karma. For when the Master is met, an early liberation from the wheel of births and deaths and the pain and suffering of human life is assured. At the time of initiation, the Master takes over the responsibility of the disciple's karmic account from the negative power. This is one of the greatest acts of love that the Master does for his followers. Thereafter, the Master arranges for the working out of the disciple's karmic debts and does so with infinite kindness and mercy, lightening the burden as much as possible. The Master then leads the disciple through meditation to the higher realms, which are beyond the jurisdiction of the negative power and the karmic law. The path of salvation, the path of the safe return to the soul's true home, then lies open before him, stretching away to the ever higher spiritual realms and illuminated by the light of the Word and the radiance of the Master's constant presence.